and welcome to the channel. My name is Mel and I am a knitter, crafter and homesteader living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. And I live here with my husband John and our menagerie of animals on, is it a small homestead or small holding, and here I talk about all my crafting endeavours. This will be my Make 9 video for 2005. I don't know if there's anything on, I think there's probably one item on this year's list that has been on a previous list. I think just the one. I have quite a lot of garments on this list. I have 6 garments, 2 patterned socks and 1 shawl. But I think most of it is relatively new to my list. Maybe one of the socks have been on my queue for quite some time. So let's just crack into it, and I won't be doing these in a particular order, it's just whatever order the yarns come to me as I get to them. I will put pictures up on the screen of the patterns that I intend to make, and I will show the yarns that I intend to use for them. Okay, I am still working through my considerable drops yarn stash that I've had for some time now, and most of these yarns I've had for quite a while, waiting for the projects that I have been planning to make for quite that same length of time basically. So let's get started. Okay, first up, let's start with this Bonny Blue yarn, which is Drops Fable in the colourway 108 and Drops Fable in the colourway 100. These are both the Drops fingering weight sock yarn, and they are 75% wool, 25% polyamide, and I intend to make the Fiel sweater. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm keeping my phone to hand so that I can keep a check on what these are actually called, because my memory is not great for remembering names. I'm currently looking at the wrong pattern. It is, yes, it is the Fiel sweater by Winterludes, and it is a really nice bunny yoked sweater. I haven't yet decided if I'm going to steek this as a cardigan. There's a good chance that I will. I'm just not sure yet, because I find round yoked sweaters don't fit me on the shoulders brilliantly. They tend to make me look quite broad on the shoulders, unless I make quite a few modifications. But I can get away with it a little more with a cardigan, because I tend to wear my cardigans open. So I just haven't decided yet, but I have had this in my queue for a number of years, and I'll be glad to finally get it made. It is quite a traditional style colourwork yoke, in the way that it isn't like a modern intricate design with lots of different various pictures on it. Is quite a traditional Scandinavian style, I think, yoked sweater. Next up we have the Winter Me sweater by Winterludes. There's too many names for me to remember here, and they all sound very similar to their pattern names, but I intend to knit this with Drops Node, and I think this pattern is actually a free pattern on Ravelry. Actually, this pattern is no longer available. Well, I didn't know that. I apologise for that. I actually have this in my library and I have it downloaded, fortunately. But that would have been a disappointment after buying the yarn. This yarn I actually bought thinking the colour was different to this. This is quite like a reddy brick colour, and I thought it was slightly more orange. I'm not sure how it's looking on screen, but on my viewfinder it looks more orange than it is in real life, but it's more of a pinky toned terracotta, and I was hoping for more orangey toned terracotta. So I'm tempted in some ways to over dye this just a little bit to give it a little bit more orangey undertone or top notes to it. The Drops Node is a 45% alpaca, 30% polyamide, 25% wool base. It is a alpaca sock yarn, alpaca blend sock yarn, but I do like the Node. It has a really lovely feel to it, the same as the Drops Flora, which is an alpaca wool blend, although that doesn't have any polyamide in it. The blend of the alpaca and the wool does feel very nice to the touch. It is a fingering weight yarn, and yeah, I will have to decide if I'm going to over dye this before knitting this sweater. And I will just be using a undyed white for the contrast with this colourwork yoke. Next up, I want to knit another pattern that's discontinued. I am so sorry, I hadn't realised when I pulled these together that so many of them had been discontinued. Hopefully it's just the two. I knit a Ichabod cardigan by Andy Satterland a few years ago, and I would like to knit a second. Originally I had intended to knit this in a light tweedy green yarn, but I decided to switch that up and use the Harrisville Nightshades yarn that I had bought for the Librarian cardigan by Ellie of Scandia, and instead intend to use that green tweedy yarn for the Librarian. It is a twisted stitch all over pattern sweater, and the Nightshades is very, very dark, and knitting with almost black yarn, a pattern in it all over, was just, I didn't get very far. I knit the rib, I've took the needles off of this, I've took it off the cable, and I knit about 2 rows and knew I was going to hate knitting it. So a light green would be much better suited to that pattern, and instead the pattern I was going to use the light green for, I am now using the black yarn, because the Ichabod cardigan is relatively patternless. It is stockinette almost all over. It just has some pearl bump ridges where I can put stitch markers where they go, and it'll be fine. I'll be able to knit this in my dull north facing living room and on an evening whilst watching TV, no bother, hopefully. And I will most likely knit this in the round and steek it as I did the orange Ichabod cardigan. The Nightshades colour that I'm using is called Last Call, and it is one that has a kind of a green blue flecks in it. It is black with subtle colour, and all of the Nightshades are the same. They're either black with blue or black with purple, and they have this subtle all over colour that's not quite black. Next up, I have intended to knit the Pink Fizz sweater by Andrea Mari for a couple of years now, and I had swatched for it with the yarns that I had originally intended to use, which was a white lightly speckled yarn held double with a white mohair. And although I'm going to use those yarns for something else, I'm not sure what yet, I've decided to change to use a completely different yarn for the Pink Fizz sweater instead. I'm going to use some of my old hand-dyed yarns from when I was a yarn dyer. I still have my old label on there, Madam L. And this is a DK weight yarn, an 80% superwash merino, 20% bamboo in the colourway Dionysus. And it is a gorgeous kind of a mauvey purple with these little burgundy speckles throughout. And although merino bamboo tends to pill quite a bit, and it's not probably the best yarn for lace work in the fact that it doesn't have as good definition as some other yarns might, I decided I want to use this yarn for a drop shoulder sweater. And as the Pink Fizz is a drop shoulder sweater anyway, and I'd struggle to find another sweater that I would like to use for this, I thought the two would just combine the two and be done with it. So I have 500 grams of this yarn, and I'm just hoping it's enough. Because it's quite a boxy sweater, it's going to use more yarn than a standard sweater that I would knit with waist shaping and such like. In some ways I'm tempted to change the construction method for this sweater. It is knit bottom up, and it has lace panels on either side of the bust, and it has very narrow sleeves, which I will be adjusting because I'm not going to be doing narrow sleeves. So in some ways I'm tempted to reverse all the instructions and knit top down. But I haven't decided if I would also knit the lace work upside down or reverse the lace chart, because the lace chart has a few stitches in there that I'm not sure I'll be able to do in reverse. I think if I turned the lace chart upside down and have it running the opposite way on the sweater, I think it'll be fine, because it's not specifically a pictorial lace design. It's not like it's flowers and stem and leaves and it would look silly upside down or anything like that. So that is another possibility, is just knit the lacework chart as it is written, but have it reversed in direction on the actual garment. So that is the pink Fizz sweater by Andrew Mowry. Next up we have a sock pattern that I actually don't have the yarn for currently, or rather I have the yarn base for, but I need to dye the colour on top of. So that is the Twinkleberry socks, no, Winterberry socks rather, and those are by This Handmade Life. They are a lacy bobbly pattern that runs up the socks, and I've been meaning to make these for a couple of years now. Originally I had intended to use some leftover Regia Ecoline burgundy yarn that I had left over from knitting Christmas socks that I'd used for toes and heels, and I would probably have enough left to knit another pair of socks. But then I thought these would look really nice in a slightly lighter burgundy red, in a colour that I used to dye many years ago with botanical dyes called Ruby. And the base that I intend to use is one that was quite hard to come by. When I first started dyeing yarns, I bought a batch of Blueface Leicester Trilobal nylon base, and I was only able to get it once when I first started out, and then it was out of stock for 2 or 3 years, and then I was able to get another batch just before I stopped dyeing yarn, and I still have some upstairs. It is a sock yarn, but the Trilobal nylon, which is works the same way as regular nylon, but the way that it's produced, it has more facets to the strand of nylon, so it looks very shiny. And Blueface Leicester, it has a natural sheen to it anyway compared to merino, but the Trilobal nylon gives it extra shine. So I dyed some yarn in Ruby on this base right at the beginning of my dyeing journey, and it was so beautiful, and I really wished I'd kept a skein back. So I am hoping to dye a skein of that up to knit these Winterberry socks, and hopefully they look very bonny. Next up we have the Storm sweater by Petite Knit, and I know Petite Knit's patterns are very popular, and I haven't knit any of her patterns before, mostly because they don't really fit with my style, all the high neck sweaters and things like that. But I really like the Storm sweater for its all over texture, and I love a textured sweater. I don't particularly enjoy knitting cables, and the Storm sweater is mostly textured stitch rather than a traditional cable sweater, so you're still kind of getting that same feel almost. So that's what I'm planning to make, and I'm going to use Drops Lima for this. It's a this grey is an unusual shade of grey, and I don't think it ever really shows up very well on camera. It's quite a neutral grey. It's bordering on a warm grey, but not quite, because a warm grey would not look great with my skin colouring. I look better in cool tones. I can probably just get away with this. It's not quite a dove grey. It's not as cool as a dove grey, but it's also not a warm grey. It's hard to describe it. It is colourway 9010, and this base is a 65% wool, 35% alpaca, which I do like the Drops alpaca blends like I mentioned before, and this is a DK weight yarn. Originally I was going to knit a different design with this, and I bought a sweater's quantity for something else. I'm hoping I have enough for the Storm sweater because it is a all over one colour, but the original design I bought this for is a colourwork yoked sweater. But back then when I was buying yarns, we're talking around 5 years, 6 years ago, I wasn't good at judging the amount of yarn to buy for a project. So quite a few of the projects I've made so far, I've had leftover yarns, leftover balls over when I've finished. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case, and I'll have plenty of this for the storm sweater. Okay, this is one of those that have been on my make 9 for a couple of years now. So if you're not new here, you'll have seen this one before. And it is the Chestnut Cardigan by Marie Wallen. I fell in love with this design the first time I ever saw it, and I'd swung back and forth on whether to knit this or the Orkney cardigan, also by Marie Wallen, mainly because of living on Orkney, and decided, you know, I still love the Chestnut Cardigan, and not just for the colours that were in the original design, but also for the designs themselves. And I have a bunch of various Shetland yarns, some bought here on Orkney and some bought whilst I was in Shetland 3 years ago, I think it was. Mostly it is Jameson's Shetland Spindrift, which I'm not going to take them all out of the bag, but Shetland Spindrift. But I also have some of the Uredale yarns here as well, and I have various shades of autumnal tones, and my camera just wants to focus on me. There we go. Uredale yarns. We have shine, we have lack of focus, but we got them. The reason I haven't started this yet is because I need to spin the main colour yarn for this. I have some Shetland fibre, and I intend to blend it up and spin it into a oatmeal-y beigey shade for the contrast yarn for the colour work to go in amongst all these colours, because here I have lots of natural colours, but they're all browns and golds and greens and such like, and I need a white-ish yarn. I think I will swap out this burgundy red for a different burgundy red I have upstairs in my Hair in the Tortoise wristies that I've been meaning to knit for about 6 years, which is a more of a maroon colour. This one's quite a red burgundy, so I think I will swap it out and keep it a bit more neutral, because all the other ones are much more kind of, I don't know, like heathland, moorland kind of colours, and I think the more maroony burgundy will fit better. So that is the Chestnut Cardigan. Okay, another accessory, or the only accessory really, and that is a shawl. I would like to knit another Winter Wonder shawl by Helen Stewart, but to do so I need to rip out a project that I have already made not that long ago, actually, probably a year ago, and that is my Phobia shawl. I made this gorgeous shawl. This is about a year ago, and there is nothing wrong with the shawl pattern itself. It is a really bonny shawl. It's stockinette, it has lacy border on it. The problem with it is it's a triangle shawl, and triangle shawls just don't, if it's a massive oversized triangle shawl that you can sit and wrap around your shoulders on the sofa kind of shawl, that's fine, but a smaller one to wear around your neck, it just doesn't work for me. If I put this on, and this is heavily blocked, if I put this on, I have to have it right up tight around my neck to have long enough tails, or I've got to pull it out from my neck and then I've got dinky little tails, and it just bothers me. And I know I could probably do, you know, the whole one shoulder thingy cuff, but that's just not how I wear a shawl. And not only that, is the depth of the triangle coming down to your belly button type thing. It's just not for me. So what I intend to do is rip out the yarns, reblock them and reuse them for a Winter Wonder shawl, and that one is a crescent shawl. It's a shallower crescent shawl, and it's one of my favourite shawls that I currently wear, my blue one that I already made, and I think it'll just work better. I've been looking forward to having a charcoal shawl in my wardrobe, because I wear a fair amount of black when I'm out and about, and it just didn't work for me. So the yarns that I've used for this, I'm going to have to try and remember because I no longer have the labels for this. It is Border Mill Alpaca Rose, and I think it's a 50% alpaca, 50% rose fibre base. One of them colours is onyx, and I think the other one is graphite, or is it pewter? might be pewter and onyx, and they are 2 shades of charcoal, one considerably darker, and I have 2 skeins of the lighter and 1 skein of the darker. So for the Winter Wonder I will use the 2 skeins that I have for the main garter section, and then I will use the darker yarn for the lacework, which is basically the same lace as this. It is a very similar shawl, it's just a completely different shape and will work better for my needs. Okay, I think we're almost there now. There might only be one item left. I have a pair of socks, another pair of socks that I would like to knit, and it is a lace design. I intend to use Drops Nord again, actually. Is that upside down? Yes, upside down. Drops Nord in the colourway 07, which is a light beige, and because it's Drops Nord, it is actually a sock yarn, like I said before, which is 30% polyamide, 45% alpaca, 25% wool. I have not used an alpaca yarn for socks before, so I'm interested to see how well these hold up. In theory this should be fine. There's actually a higher nylon content than a regular sock yarn with 30% in there, and alpaca is relatively strong as well, so like I said, I'm interested to see how well they hold up, although I will knit these on a 2mm needle rather than my usual 2.5, 2.25, just so that because alpaca, it doesn't bounce back the same way that wool does, so if I don't knit them tighter, the stitches I suspect will be a little bit sloppy, so I will knit these at a tighter gauge. And the pattern I intend to use is called the Lamus Socks, or Lamus, and they are by Mina Savala, and they have like little wheat ear designs on the top of the foot. Now that's what it looks like to me. They're actually supposed to be a seagrass, but to me they look like little wheat ears, or little grain heads. And I've loved this pattern since I first saw it. So that is all of my Make 9 for this year, and I have managed to keep it to 9 projects. There's no honourable mentions or anything like that, although I'm sure there will be other patterns that I will want to make this year. I did a huge box of socks for myself last year, and I will be knitting socks for myself and my husband this year. I intend to knit him, well, I haven't decided if it will be a box of socks, but I intend to knit him a pair of socks each month this year. Whether or not he gets them the month that they are made or at the end of the year, I haven't yet decided. Depends how quickly he gets through the socks he already has in his drawer, because he hasn't really been wearing his knitted socks for everyday use since I made them. He tends to wear them like after a shower in an evening sort of thing, because they're too good to wear is his reasoning. But I've convinced him, you know, that's what they are there for. So I intend to knit him more socks this year, and I will of course be knitting myself socks because they are my go-to relaxing knitting, mindless knitting. And I also already have projects on the needles too, and I'm sure there'll be the odd thing that crops up, but I think, do you know what, I really want to cast that on now. But these are the ones that I really want to try and get through as many of as possible this year. So I'm interested to know what you're knitting on this year. Do you have any big plans or any specific projects that you really want to finally get around to making this year? Some of these I've wanted to do for ages. It's just finding the time to get everything done that you want to get done. It can be a real struggle, and prioritizing which of your crafting projects come before others can be really tricky sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there and get my hot drink, which will probably be quite cold now, drunk, because I am quite thirsty and quite dry now from all the talking. And I shall see you on the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.